Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for your interest in my trip to Puerto Rico. As many of you know, I went to Puerto Rico for almost 20 days between October 5th through October 24th. And thank you for your interest. And I've talked to so many people that wanted to know about it that I thought I'll do a short video so those who are interested can hear more about it, and those who are not, you can turn it off right now. So I'll give you a second to do that. Again, thank you for your interest. My family is fine. My mom lives there, my brother, my aunts, and so I was particularly interested in checking up on my mom and family members. And so I thought I'd tell you a little bit about what's going on, what I did there, and display for you some of the images that I saw and experienced while I was there. So the first thing that I will tell you is that life is really hard in Puerto Rico right now. You can see it in people's gazes, and I didn't take pictures of people because I didn't feel like I could intrude on them, but certainly on my mom's face, on my brother's face, you see this sort of glazed look of sadness, frankly. It's been over a month since Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico and devastated it. And this sense of desperation and impatience, not impatience, maybe a sense of loss is what I see in people's faces. There are now signs of nature coming back. When I arrived, the place looked scorched. It looked like it was burnt. And those of us who love Puerto Rico and who love the beauty of our island are really hurt and saddened for that. But a month later, you can see palm trees starting to blossom and to sprout, palms and flowers beginning to bloom. And so I think nature is actually rebounding faster than civilization. It could take until January 2018 to get electricity. And when I first heard about that in September, I thought there's no way. And once I arrived, I could see that it could take to January. And in fact, some people are reporting that some people may not get electricity until March and maybe even later. Why is that? Well, because poles, not only did the grid go down, but poles, telephone poles, wires, and you'll see some of the images are down everywhere. So even if you could get the grid up, you still would have to get all the poles up. Some of the images that you'll see are lines, and that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about. There are lines for everything. So there are lines for grocery stores. And then when you get into the grocery store, the shelves are empty. And that was something that I saw continually, and I saw many of those. There are lines around banks. And why is that? Because cash is king in Puerto Rico right now. So there are a few restaurants and a few places that are open. They don't have electricity for the ATM machines or the credit cards to work. And so people are always have a disclaimer that say, we may not be accepting ATM or credit cards, so make sure you have cash. The other thing that you'll see a lot is traffic lines, if you will. I'm calling them lines, but traffic jams everywhere. And I mentioned electricity. Electricity is going to take a long time. There's some signs of hope. Elon Musk, Tesla, just put solar panels in the Children's Hospital, and we'll see how that works. But there are signs that there's a lot of help coming. So my time in Puerto Rico, briefly, I spent the first couple of days in the metro area, and my second day there, I was in a traffic jam that was 4.5 hours, and I traversed a mile. And the reason for that was that Vice President Pence was there visiting, and we didn't realize that they were going to block everything. And so by the time we realized that we were going to be stuck here and it was going to be dark, and since it's dark and we were going to a different part of town, we didn't want to risk it. So we decided that we would go back to my apartment, and it literally took us 4.5 hours to get back to where I was staying. I then visited my aunt, and I did all kinds of work there. I did a little bit of agriculture. I kind of saved the tree. I cleaned rubbish and helped my aunt get in place, and took her to the grocery store. And because she's elderly, we could get ahead on the line, but the shelves were still empty when we got in. I also visited with my mom. My mom started a home foundation for homeless people, and so she's still very committed. And so we helped her to put grocery bags together, to deliver lunches to different parts of town, including some of the towns that are hard hit. And finally, I really wanted to do something that was more systemic, not just help my mom and my family. And so I was able to connect with Secretary Julia Kelleher, who's the Secretary of Education for Puerto Rico, and worked about 4 days with the Department of Education. And my specific project was I developed a guide for supporting students from Puerto Rico in stateside schools. Those students and families are considered homeless when they come here because they've been displaced, but those schools have to get records. And when they try to get records from Puerto Rico, they're not going to be able to get them from their sending schools because those schools are closed. And so we devised a centralized process to get that information. And so we send information to every state superintendent. I drafted those letters, I drafted the guide, and so hopefully that'll help somewhat. Talking about schools, on the 24th, which is the day I traveled back, schools were supposed to be open, and so the secretary was able to open 113 schools in 2 out of 8 regions. So just to give you a sense of the scope of that, that's 113 schools out of 1,113 total schools on the island. So these 340,000 students don't really have places to go, and many of them are coming stateside, and so that's why we wanted to create some kind of guide, not only for the schools stateside, but also for families to know what to expect when they come out. Let me end with a couple of stories. One was water has been a difficult thing for them to receive and to get, and so there's some running water, but not a lot of running water. And so that's been a challenge. And so one of the Facebook posts, which may or may not be true, that I saw was a car brought a washing machine to the river pipe that they were getting water from the river, and a generator so that they could actually wash clothes by the roadside. I don't know if that's true, if that was a fake picture, but that was what I saw. Groceries, I told you about the empty shelves. There's one part of town called Condado, which is a very ritzy part of town, which I was frankly disheartened from an equity perspective to see. They had all kinds of waters. They had shelves that were full of groceries and fresh produce. And in fact, the private schools in that area were already up and running. In terms of the emotional drain on people, I can only speak to you about my mom. She was in tears every so often, weekly. I just see if she was reminded of something where people were saddened or experiencing hardship. And finally, a funny story. The morning that I arrived, so I arrived on the 24th, on the 25th, I got ready to go to work. And I got up really early and I went to the bathroom and I turned the light on and the switch didn't turn the light on. And I thought, I must be sleepy. And so I went to the other bathroom and the light didn't turn on. So I thought, what a cruel joke my wife is playing on me. She turned the electricity off just to kind of make a point. Well, when I went downstairs and I went for my walk, the whole block was actually, there was no electricity. The end of the story is that actually electricity was back and it wasn't a cruel joke on my wife. It was actually somehow the electricity in my block went away for my first morning here. Those are my stories. I want to thank all of you who have been interested in hearing about these stories. I also want to thank the IMSA community who came together on October 21st to support relief efforts for Puerto Rico. Thanks to Janet Rosario and to others who put an event together where 80 volunteers showed up on October 21st, and there were 24,000 pounds worth of supplies collected. And so again, I want to thank you, IMSA community, for stepping up, and I would ask you to continue to have Puerto Rico in your thoughts, and as you can, as you are willing, to donate on the relief efforts. Thank you.